Hey y'all, I'm Leslie Hooper.
And I'm Steph Miramontes.
And today I want to break down for you the two types of dieters. Now, if you've stumbled upon my channel, then there's a good chance that you might be someone who is stuck circling the diet drain. And no matter how hard you try, you can't seem to get the results that you want. So I want to take a few moments to share with you the difference between a restrictor or permitter, because they have two very different inner psychologies, and showing you a couple of examples might help you more closely identify and relate to which type of dieter you are, so you can then begin solving for the right dieting type, because again, they are different. Steph, before we get started sharing these examples, is there anything you want to add here?
Just that if you feel like you don't identify exactly with one or the other, know that it's a spectrum. Know that you can kind of fall anywhere on the line of these two types. It's just that you kind of lean one way or the other. And when you know more, when you understand more about your diet personality type or anything about yourself, then you have a little bit of a direction on what to work on. So don't get all overwhelmed like, I have all the problems, or none of this really fits me. Now where do I fit? It's like, let's just pick a side-ish, start working on something, see some results. And then if you've got some lingering BS, then we can work on that after.
Yeah, I will say that there's often overlap, similarly to how all humans are emotional eaters to one extent or another. Some of them are also binge eaters, but not all of them. And so there can be what I like to refer to when explaining it to our clients of like more of a dominant hand, something that you tend to do more consistently, but that doesn't mean you don't do any of the behaviors at all. I thought it would be fun if we used specific celebrities to really break this down for you and show you some of their eating behaviors and exercise behaviors, so you can more closely identify with, okay, which one does more closely align with me, so we can give you some tools to help you get started working on those specific areas. You don't waste your time on some of the wrong things. So let's go ahead and get started first with permitters. Now, y'all, I'm just going to throw this out here. Permitters are generally really long-term dieters. Not always, but I will say we tend to see quite a few of them dieting since childhood, basically since they were in their diapers. And historically, they have a long history of yo-yoing back and forth, kind of extreme weight gain and weight loss. So I'm going to start with Mindy Kaling. Is that how you pronounce her name?
I'm actually not sure how you pronounce her last name, but Mindy, forgive us.
Okay, well, that goes to show you how closely we follow celebrity. Okay.
I'm someone who, since I was 14 years old, have been, on some kind of mission to look a certain way. Nothing has ever been sustainable. If there's been like an award show or I'm shooting something, I'm like, I used to be the person that was like, I have to stop eating this foods, or like 6 weeks beforehand, I'm only going to juice or anything. Yeah. It would work 30% of the time, right? And then 70% of the time I couldn't stick to it. And if anything, so I am not getting ready for anything. I'm not going to be in any kind of like show. I'm just really trying for the first time, like moderation. I'm never going to stop being a foodie. I'm never going to be someone who can just have like, spinach and salmon every single day. I tried doing that and, it hasn't worked. I was this person in my 20s where I thought like a workout had to be something that was like, punishing 45 minutes of running and you had to hate it the whole time.
Okay, so that is our first permitter celebrity. What do you notice about her compared to other permitters that we've worked with in our Unstuffed and Masterful programs?
Well, it's interesting because when you started this conversation, you kind of said, well, permitters tend to yo-yo a lot and maybe lose a lot of weight and gain a lot of weight. But I actually think that is also kind of a calling card of restrictors And because they're so much more committed long term, where Mindy was talking about how like she'd do the thing, but she could never stick to it. So like sometimes it would work kinda, and then sometimes it wouldn't work at all. And what I see in our permitters oftentimes is they even think the word diet, they even think the word restriction or telling themselves no. And it's like maybe they start off strong on Monday morning for a meal or two, but by a day or two, or even that same day, they're kind of back in the pantry, maybe even, overeating, overcompensating, because they're saying like, oh, we're kind of having this perceived restriction. We haven't even started yet. And yet now we're overeating kind of just at the thought of restricting. And I think Mindy has done a lot of that. I think she thinks about doing the juice cleanse, juices for a little bit, and then it's like, oh shit, no, I'm a foodie.
As far as the foodie is concerned, I do find that actually permitters use that language a lot more than restrictors. And it's often used as an excuse to eat more. The point I was trying to make about the yo-yoing is they tend to gain much more weight, in my experience, than restrictors. They're both yo-yoing. The difference is the amount of the swing. Again, not everybody, just most of them have lived in a bigger body than a restrictor. So that's just one observation that I have seen in a lot of cases as well. The exercise, that's the other thing that I wanted to mention, is a lot of the time permitters do not have a relationship with exercise that they really enjoy. They kind of feel like they have to force themselves. It doesn't come naturally. They don't particularly enjoy it. It feels like a bit of an uphill climb, no pun intended. So that relationship already feels a little sticky. What do you think?
Absolutely. It's very much, I have to exercise so I can lose weight. And I do think that there's some of that in common with the I have to exercise so I can lose weight. But I think that permitters tend to have a dysfunctional relationship with exercise. Like I wouldn't go anywhere near a gym if I didn't have to. Not all of them, again, but oftentimes there's a pattern, usually because they have spent so much time trying to lose weight, so much energy trying to lose weight, that the exercise always feels punishing. It always feels forced.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's take a look at our next celebrity here then. And here we have Sharon Osbourne talking about her dieting struggles.
Sharon, yes. I do want to touch upon one thing, because you've lost some weight.
I have. And the good part is that I've maintained it, because over the years, I mean, I've never kept it a secret. I've had a terrible weight problem my entire life. I used to be 230 pounds. I've tried everything from powders to potions to diet pills to having a band put on my stomach, which nearly killed me. And the only thing that I have managed to keep my weight off is Atkins. And yes, I am a spokesperson for Atkins. And yes, they pay me very nicely. But the truth is the truth. And I wouldn't be sat here today and giving you a lot of this if it wasn't for real. Anyone can do it. You don't feel deprived of food. You can even have their bars that they do, which have chocolate, which I'm an addict to chocolate. And so you can even have chocolate on it. You know, instead of a meal, you can have a shake. But I like to eat. I like to eat. I don't want to not eat.
Okay. And Sharon says she'd like to eat.
Yeah, she says, I like to eat. So, I'm glad she said I like to eat, because at first she's like, you can have a shake instead of a meal. And I was like, is this a selling point? Because gag, first of all, nobody wants a shake instead of a meal unless they're just like, I hate eating or something, but it's just like the language right out the gate. I have tried everything, pills and potions and stomach band and all the things external to me to try and get the weight off. Not habits, not healthy behavior changes, things like that. It's all what is external to me to fix me, because I have been broken my entire life. And I mean, relatable, obviously, but it is a lot of permitter language. It's like, you can have these bars. Everyone can do it. You don't feel deprived of food. That's the nuance right there. You don't feel deprived of food? No, because you can eat all the food you want, like all the steak you want or whatever on these low carb diets. But I would feel very deprived on an Atkins diet. It would feel like hell and torture. But what I know about Sharon is that I don't know how old that clip was.
It's obviously an old clip because we know she's come out talking about her Ozempic journey, but she had the band and then had it removed, which is also indicative of something that a permitter would experience and go through, I would say. You're less likely to see that happen with a restrictor type of client or individual.
Yep. And that was the point I was going to make is I don't know how old the video is, but we know that it wasn't sustainable. She did end up regaining and then doing Ozempic, and then has come out and talked about how that has had major consequences for her as well, particularly saying that she was addicted to it the same way she said she's addicted to chocolate. So the dramatic language around food and diet and things like that is indicative of a permitter, where a restrictor talks about things matter-of-factly, like this is just the way it is, my calories, my this, my that. This is just very dramatic language around all of this. I'm addicted, and it's like this big thing outside of us.
Yeah, a lot of looking for solutions outside, which again, indicative of why there hasn't been permanent weight loss, because we are trying to solve a problem with tools outside of us than addressing maybe the emotional reasons why we overeat. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at our third celebrity here, Amy Schumer, the comedian.
You talked out there about feeling confident in yourself, and then when you go to put on your clothes, or when you went shopping, you lost all your confidence because you didn't feel like your body fit or you fit, and that transferred to not only did your clothes not fit, but you weren't lovable, you didn't have any worth, and you were like a piece of.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean,
is it really that? I mean,
it's an emotional thing. It's been a struggle for me my whole life, and especially just being in the entertainment industry, standing on a stage in front of people. I can't perform my best or be confident if I'm not sure, if I'm pulling at something. Sometimes I'm a size 6, sometimes I'm a size 12, and so going to put jeans on, or things that I see girls in magazines or on TV wearing, wasn't agreeing with my body type. And I felt, you feel bad and wrong, and you're in a dressing room trying stuff on, and maybe there's a sales girl who's like looking at you. And then a lot of fittings I would have for jobs I got, or TV shows or something. And the stylist is busy, and they're just annoyed, and you feel like they hate you because you're not rail thin. And it creates so much anxiety, and sometimes I would just want to just like kind of throw in the towel and be like, I'm not going to go do stand-up tonight, or I'm not going to go on this job interview because I don't feel like I look good, and it's too stressful to try to piece together something to step out into the world. I would just wear something out that just kind of wanting to hide and go unnoticed. Yeah, and that was me sending a message to myself of, that your value lays other places, so you don't have to worry about that. And if people look at you and judge you, well, then that's on them. But it was just a defense mechanism.
What can you identify as a permitter there?
Well, I look at this, I mean, other than sort of the defense mechanism piece, I really look at this as a societal issue and a body image issue, what she's going through and what she's talking about. I think that there is a lot of pressure to be a certain size, regardless of whether you're famous or not. And I do think that shopping can be a miserable experience, whether you're famous or not. And if you don't fit the way that you quote unquote should, then it is easy to start being apathetic and give up and use self-defeatist language and things like that, and there's almost a part of you that's just like, you know what, fuck you. Like, I'm not changing for you because you make me feel like shit and I'm not good enough as I am. But I think that her relationship with sometimes I'm a size 12, sometimes I'm a size 6, that very up and down and trying to find her self-worth and things like that is very indicative of the yo-yo dieter, I can't stick to whatever got me to a size 6. I'll do anything to feel better. And then, shit just blows up, as it always does. But the rest of it is just gosh, we should do a video all on that because it's a body image issue. And that's something that we talk about a lot in our programs, and the people watching would probably benefit from that conversation.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, those are the 3 permitter examples. One thing that I did think of is all 3 of these ladies have come out and talked about Ozempic. That is the one thing that they all also have in common. No hate, no shade. We are not anti-Ozempic, and there's no problem with that, but it is just an observation that I made. So let's shift gears and talk a little bit about the restrictors. Steph, I know you also identify as a restrictor, and it's been really fascinating because we created the weight loss psychology quiz to help our clients identify which type that they are. And that's a valuable tool that I'll make sure that we link in the description below. But the interesting thing is that there are far fewer individuals that are restrictors than permitters. And there's been about 10,000 people at this point in time at the recording of this video that have taken that quiz. And so we've had a chance to collect a lot of data based off of those results. Who knows exactly how accurate they are? Anybody can put anything in them. But we've also noticed that trend within our coaching programs as well. Usually works out to be 20 to 30% restrictors, 60, 70%, maybe even 80% permitters. So I would say culturally, socially, here in the US especially, that's pretty congruent with what we see amongst just our general population here in the States. So restrictors are a little less common, a little more extreme, I would say, in their approach. And binge eating tends to be something that is more readily available for a restrictor because they are more extreme in their relationship with food and exercise. These are the people that tend to be over-exercisers, the macro counters, and the perfectionists. Even though permitters are perfectionists too, I don't think they are nearly as hard on themselves. I should say maybe restrictors even lean a little bit more anal, a little more type A, and their personalities, a little more control. Steph, that's just off the top of my head. What observations have you made about restrictors?
Yeah, I think that particularly when it comes to their food and their exercise, they're very diligent. They're very perfectionistic. They can't see any gray area. Everything that might dip into the gray is a mistake, is an error that needs to be fixed, made up for, started over, something, dramatic around that language of just, I need to fix this, I need to be better. And it's very internal. It's not, well, this diet was a failure. It's very much, I failed at this, I did this wrong. And so, yeah, I think that they are harder on themselves. Their inner critic is pretty loud as it relates to the food, where permitters oftentimes will be hard on themselves, like they're inherently broken in a lot of ways, but also that the world is just so hard. And it takes a more broad blame than just like a restrictor's like, nope, it's me, I'm a problem.
Well, and the difference between, let's say, going to a restaurant, for example, permitters are going to be more of the individuals that are of the YOLO mindset. You only live once, and so we got to go all in. They don't want the first step of being a permitter with a rule is to break the rule. Whereas restrictors love rules. That makes them feel very safe and in control. They tend to gravitate more towards the data, the hard numbers, because that makes them feel more secure in their process. And that precise perfectionism also, they get to scratch that itch. Restrictors going into a restaurant are the types who are going to look at the menu and research ahead of time. Again, not across the board, always and forever. These are just the common behaviors that we have noticed in these 2 different diet personality types. So I'm going to highlight here a few celebrities that are restrictors. However, this was kind of hard to locate because these individuals don't really approach this from a weight loss perspective. appears to be much more of like a lifestyle. So, but I want to just highlight some of their behaviors that are in alignment with what we would see in a restrictor.
Before you do that, I want to comment on this because I just had a thought that there is something about being a restrictor that gives you a little bit of a superiority complex when you're going through it. When you're diligent and you're in the 100% club, you're like, this is just who I am. Like when it's easy and it's in flow. When you're failing, it's miserable. You are brutal. But when you are doing the thing, you're just like, this is just how everyone should eat. I don't know why everyone doesn't just, like, look at me. I'm just amazing. I'm so strong, just like bringing my own food into restaurants, whatever. It just feels like it is a lifestyle when you're on it, when you're perfect.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think you tended to lean a little bit more uppity in that way. I always felt like I was on the brink of losing control. So I was never feeling too good about my path because I was always operating from like a place of fear.
Did you just call me uppity?
Well, I mean, that's how you described it. Y'all comment. Is that an uppity attitude? I don't think anybody would deny that's a little uppity.
It definitely is. It's a defense mechanism. It's trying to adopt an identity of perfection, of like, this is, trying to convince yourself.
All right. Well, just wanted to lay the foundation here as we introduce you to these specific restrictor celebrities. And it's going to look quite different from what you observed in the permitters. So let's go ahead and start with Kylie Jenner.
I avoid late night cravings because I lock myself in my bedroom and I turn on my TV. I get really comfortable and I pre-slice an apple by my bed. Since I'm really comfortable, I'll be too lazy probably to go down to the kitchen. So my only choice is this apple. So that is how I swerve my late night cravings.
Thoughts on Kylie Jenner's cravings strategy?
Yeah, it's great. It makes me curious what else she's eating in a day because, you're going to have what you resist persists. And if you have this whole idea of good food, bad food, which boy, do restrictors ever have a list of good food, bad food, then they're going to do everything they can to protect themselves, including locking cabinets and refrigerator doors and, enrolling family members to help them stay out of things and literally telling people to slap food out of their hands and things like that. So, if there's no good food, and I mean good as in tastes good, enjoyable, pleasurable, things I actually want to eat happening all day long, and we're living on green juice and salad and sliced apples. Well, no shit. No wonder you're locking yourself in your room and telling yourself you're too lazy to get up and go do something, well, at least until you break. And then nothing can stop you at that point.
Right. And that's the part that we don't get to hear about, is when a restrictor loses their willpower or they're going through a tough time and then all bets are off. And this is where a lot of the overeating tends to happen in a sitting. And then it's back to the extreme punishing, slashing calories, increasing exercise the next day is a cycle for many. That was me. And also, I think that, just totally irrelevant side note, but I do think that in the fitness industry, you're going to see more restrictors than you would permitters. Again, another way to kind of get our emotional needs met through control. And if we're solving other people's problems, then certainly we're going to be able to solve our own as well. So, and the more you're in the gym, the less you're at home with your kitchen. And that's also something that we think about if you feel out of control around food at certain moments. So, okay, we have another restrictor celebrity here that I want to highlight. Okay, so I want to introduce David Beckham talking about Victoria Beckham's diet. And this is very indicative of what you might see in a restrictor as well.
Victoria Beckham isn't interested in spicing up her life when it comes to what she eats. During an appearance on the River Cafe Table 4 podcast, the fashion mogul's hubby, David Beckham, revealed that his wife has eaten the same exact meal every single day for nearly 3 decades.
When I'm eating something great, I want everyone to try it, you know, and that's, unfortunately, I'm married to someone that has eaten the same thing for the last 25 years. Since I've met Victoria, she only eats, you know, grilled fish, steamed vegetables. She'll very rarely deviate away from there.
So we're talking grilled fish and veggies every day since the late 1990s. But David did share a rare instance in which the mother of his 4 kiddos strayed away from her daily eating routine.
The only time that she's ever probably shared something that's been on my plate was actually when she was pregnant with Harper.
Do you remember
and
what
it was the most amazing thing. It was one of my favorite evenings. I can't remember what it was, but I know that she's not eaten it since.
Another example of maintaining control, feeling safe and secure, not, you know, being too spontaneous with our food and open to experimentation.
Yeah, I think eating the same thing over and over is less problematic than refusing to, not even when you go out for your anniversary or holidays or anything, like ever. She must be the best restrictor. Like if there's a restrictor contest, I bet she'd win it. Like she's good at it. Now, honestly, she has been scrutinized and picked at and weighed on public television so people could know what her weight was, just by surprise. Just bullshit has happened with her and her body, like it does to many women, particularly celebrities. And so I don't particularly blame her for wanting to keep this public persona, this perfection persona. She's also owns a fashion line, and we all know that the fashion industry is just full of disordered eating habits and behaviors. I mean, if you want to find a room full of restrictors, that's probably where you'd find it, because I mean, their literal livelihood depends on them staying a certain weight and size and being able to fit into the sample size on the mannequin of size 00. So yeah, I absolutely eat the same thing over and over. I do that too. I still eat the same things over and over and over and over, but I still know how to get down on pizza or, you know, have
the reasons are a little different.
Yeah.
No. Yeah,
exactly. Mine's just laziness.
Yeah, it's habit. It's easy. It's efficient. But back when I was dieting, it was very much fear-based. So plus I could calculate all of the macros in my head very easily. It just simplified things.
Yep.
So yeah, going back to that safety, security, feeling in control. That was a big part of it for me. Okay, so I guess lastly, I mean, I'm kind of trying to decide because I have clipped here with Gwyneth Paltrow and Chelsea Handler and Jennifer Aniston. Similarly, the clips that we didn't really talk about with the permitters is, of course, Oprah, Jonah Hill. There are, you know, other individuals like Adele, Christina Aguilera, Jessica Simpson. So as you can see, there's a lot of examples out there. Don't have enough time to show you all of them, but when you see enough behavior consistently over extended period of time, we've been doing this combined for 30 years. I've worked with over 2,500 women. So you start to kind of notice these patterns, and it becomes very easy to know how to actually guide and help and support them even before they know what they need. So that's one of the things that I love so much about what we do. Okay, so I'm going to go into Jennifer Aniston here as well.
Great example. Jennifer Aniston, she's a very healthy eater from what I've seen, what I've read, and everybody wants to know how she keeps her hot, thin celebrity body and so young and all these things. And I think that she's incredible, but she's definitely a restrictor. That's for sure.
I mean, look, these are not great real world examples. Obviously, these women, for the most part, all have people preparing their food. I watched several of these, but especially the restrictors had home delivery service, an in-house chef, somebody preparing all of their meals. And what's interesting is even though I imagine that's the case for Oprah and potentially Amy Schumer or any of these people, it's not like they can't afford it. I didn't hear them talking about it in any of their interviews. So that was an interesting observation.
Yeah, because then if they did, it would be like, well, then why can't you just lose weight?
Get your shit together.
Right. You have all the privileges of the world. And and that's such a story for permitters, is if I could just have a home chef and someone to prepare all my food and do everything for me, then I wouldn't have this issue. And it's like, but what about Oprah? But what about Oprah? Because she's got people cooking her food. I know she's got people cooking her food.
I will show just this one little final clip since we are on the subject of Jennifer Aniston, and it's pretty brief here.
So I just want to talk to you about mornings today.
Okay.
Are you guys morning people? What does your morning routine look like? If you're at home and you're not working, what time do you get up? What's the first thing you do?
Early for you. I'm just curious. If you say 5, I'm gonna really hurt my feelings.
My kid wakes me up between 5:30 and 6 every morning.
How old's your kid?
7.
Can we put a stop to that?
I wish.
I would literally lock him in a room and I'd be like, listen, you're gonna be crated. Oh no, that's dogs. Sorry.
Well, then my dogs cry too to go out and eat breakfast.
Well,
I have like a whole thing. I am a morning person. I like being up in the morning, and about 8 or 9 o'clock at night, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so tired.
That's right. When I start to come to life.
Right.
What time are you up then?
I'd say 9, 8:30, 9. And then bed is late. Bed is like midnight, 1.
And what is the first thing you do in the morning, both of you? And what's for breakfast?
I drink coffee.
I don't do coffee first up. I do a juice first up and then coffee about a half hour later after meditation, and then feed the dogs and then work out.
I work out every day. I work out probably 6 days a week.
Yeah, that's better than me. I do 5.
And then at home.
Oh, and intermittent fasting.
Yeah. Well, that's like the no breakfast thing.
That's just don't eat breakfast.
I just have juice, like a green juice.
And the coffee.
But is that breakfast?
It doesn't count. Turns out, I don't think it's. I noticed a big difference just literally going that 14 hours.
Right.
16, sorry. 16 hours without food.
She knows so much about health and fitness, so I just defer to what Jen says.
And how often do you treat yourself to a lie-in? I think Jen does it more often than you, Reese. But a fry-up. Would you ever have a fry-up like in the UK?
What's a fry-up?
Like bacon, sausages, baked beans, your proper English breakfast.
Like a cheat day?
Yes.
Oh, every Sunday's a cheat day for me.
Yeah. Saturday, I sleep a lot and I eat a lot. Nachos.
Mexican. Yeah.
What-
Enchiladas.
Okay, Steph, now that you've had a chance to observe Jennifer Aniston and Reese Witherspoon bouncing their dieting or their morning routines and their exercise protocols with one another. Actually, it's a pretty good snapshot of how women bond and connect over their food and diet and exercise.
Yep. It totally is. We sit and talk about this kind of stuff like we are trained to talk about this kind of stuff back and forth all the time. And it's just so funny. Intermittent fasting, but like green juice is fine, but not any solid food. Like, oh my God. But I mean, whatever. It's so funny. It's so typical. And it surprises me actually that Jennifer Aniston doesn't get up until 8:30 or 9 in the morning. Actually, that's pretty shocking to me. I would totally see her as a super morning person. And I'm also kind of annoyed that she doesn't feed her dogs before, like she drinks her juice and does her meditation. My dogs would not let me get away with that shit for a second. They are first and foremost, and that is it. And then I can have my life. But yeah, I echo your sentiment that, hey, if we need a cheat day, it is probably because we're looking for some relief and some escape from our ultra restricted weekdays.
Yeah, it's been my experience that people who enjoy their meals daily, consistently, don't have a need for cheat days. They don't even use that language. If you were to look at a naturally thin person, they're not looking for that kind of relief, right? They're not looking for that escape from the rigid From their rigid eating. Yes, that was a mouthful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. I mean, listen, if you are happy, if you don't have the mental and emotional drama, if it doesn't lead you to binge eating and things like that, you know, some people's description of a cheat day is literally having a normal portion of foods that they enjoy, and they enjoy their other foods too. You know, I enjoy being a healthy eater. I enjoy healthy foods. I just don't have the same fear around it. And I think that's really what you were getting at with the whole lifestyle description of celebrities versus our in the program restrictors that are really struggling, is the pain and suffering related to what they feel they have to do, and the idea that they could lose control at any moment and it would circle into a binge, and then the self-worth being tied to all of it.
Yeah, great point. In the description below, we have created a live training that is free that we would like you to join us for. This training is literally created for both restrictors or permitters, and we're going to be going through the habits and the inner psychology that we have used, again, to help women unravel this and get to a place where they are in control around food, where they're not obsessing around food, and able to lose weight without feeling restricted and deprived and like food is controlling their lives, essentially. I know that's how I felt when I was dieting, was food obsessed. I would be eating lunch and thinking about dinner and always judging myself, and just felt always, I don't know, like it consumed me. What about you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I was eating by the clock. I was watching the clock. I was thinking about my cheat days. I was thinking about what I was going to have and trying to finagle it all in. And boy, when I was having refeeds, you should have seen the number crunch and mental gymnastics bullshit that I went through there. I'm like, we got to do Starbucks and we've got to go to the restaurant, but I can only order this because if I have this, that won't fit. And you got to make sure, like, oh my God. And then I'd have things in my freezer that I had saved and had like for my refeed days. I'm like, I'm going to have this and this and this and this. And I like kept it in the freezer because I cooked for my family all week long. Right? They could have brownies and cookies and whatever. And then I just saved like little bits. Couldn't have a whole one because it didn't fit my refeed numbers, but I have little bits and make it, oh my God, it's exhausting. So yeah. Absolutely. It's all I ever thought about.
I mean, I just want to highlight who the live training is for. Firstly, it is on the schedule for Thursday, April 18th at 1 p.m. Central. It will be recorded. So if you can't attend live, you will be able to gain access to the replay. But this is really created for dieters who are feeling frustrated, who are stuck, burned out, feel like they have tried everything and nothing has worked, and they're maybe blaming it on their metabolism slowing down or their hormones. These are generally people who've been dieting for quite some time, I would say, and are just feeling really defeated. So what we want to do is help you acquire some tools. So when we're stressed, we're not immediately turning to food, and we're not quitting on ourselves when we break one of our food rules, and we're not beating ourselves up. The goal is for you to learn how to be consistent with your eating, and the thoughts ultimately are what drive the actions. And so we want to help you learn how to think differently so you can act differently. Those are going to be some of the pillars that we discuss in depth during the live training. Steph, anything you want to add to this to make sure that our viewers recognize what kind of support, what kind of guidance, what kind of tools they're going to get during this training?
This is just something that not a lot of people are talking about, not enough people are talking about, is the inner psychology that leads people to stay stuck in these permitter and restrictor cycles, that stay safe in being stuck and struggle for years and years and years. As you mentioned, Leslie, circling the diet drain, which is exactly what it feels like. So we're going to break down each one of the pillars that we have found to be the most powerful, most insightful, most effective way to lose weight permanently.
Yeah, we'll be pulling back the curtain and revealing the step-by-step process that we have used in the Unstuffed program that has now helped over, like I said, 2,500 women lose weight and keep it off permanently. Because as I always say, we are not interested in helping people lose weight for a wedding, a reunion, or an upcoming beach vacation. We really are only interested in making a change permanently forever. So go ahead and register, because that's the only way you're going to gain access to the information to join the training and get the replay. That is it for us today, unless you have something else you want to add. Okay, well then I guess that's it. We will catch you all on the next one. Bye, y'all.